Hi, I'm Nick, and today I'll be providing information on Franklin D. Roosevelt, how he is a very key figure in the United States becoming what it is today. Franklin D. Roosevelt was the 32nd President of the United States, and in his presidency, it was spread over a lot of large events in the United States, such as the Great Depression, along with World War II. His presidency made a multitude of changes to the U.S. that still impact people everywhere today. While President, I chose to do this speech on FDR because of how influential he was and what he was able to do during his time as president. This information can be very valuable to all of you because through my audience analysis, I learned that most of you didn't have a very in-depth knowledge base on FDR and some of the policies that he made. A majority of college students will know of FDR. They won't really know what he did or all of the legislation that he passed and how he's affecting them still today. With the programs he set up, he has almost undoubtedly made an impact in your life one way or another, whether you know it or not. This is important. Today I will provide you information about FDR and the first 100 days, along with the New Deal and his lasting impacts on the United States. Together We Cannot Fail, FDR, the American Presidency, Years in Crisis, by Galloway, published in 2009, stated that not since Abraham Lincoln took office in March 1861 had a new president faced such a monumentous crisis as Franklin Roosevelt had in 1933. No new administration, before or since, has achieved so much so quickly as Roosevelt managed to do during his first 100-day span, which has become the standard for which new presidents are measured. Roosevelt's first 100 days were filled with changes to policies along with legislature, which involved the government getting more involved with the people. It also involved a lot more policies, one of which was the gold standard ending. This allowed Americans to avoid some deflation and let America print more money and not have to have a balanced budget, which let them stimulate the economy. Two programs that were also implemented in the first 100 days. One was the Public Works Administration, which helped make a lot of schools, airports, things of that, which created infrastructure in America and also helped a lot of Americans get jobs. Banking was also assessed in these first 100 days. Major changes were made to help reopen banks and then keep existing banks open. Franklin D. Roosevelt and the New Deal, 1932 to 1940 by Luchtenberg, published in 2009, said that Roosevelt issued a proclamation providing for a nationwide banking holiday. This was the first step in the government's reconstruction of the financial and economic fabric. This was the very first step in the plan to recover and reform banking in the United States. The Glass-Steagall Act put in regulations for banks that made commercial and investment banking separate. The Glass-Steagall Act also created the FDIC. The FDIC was very important because it helped regain consumer confidence and insured up to $5,000 in banks if somebody were to leave it in the bank. Now that you know a little bit about the first 100 days, I'll continue on into more of the New Deal. Franklin D. Roosevelt launching the New Deal by Friedel, published in 1973, stated that the traditions of Theodore Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson inclined Franklin Roosevelt toward a program progressive in its nature, but would benefit all the American people. This program was the New Deal, and a wide variety of government programs that it changed the way America functioned. The New Deal was massive and had changes all over. Some of these included the repeal of Prohibition, or the 21st Amendment, Homeowners Loan Corporation, which set uniform national appraisal rate methods for housing. Also had the Lasting Securities Act of 1933, which was very key because it involved the stock market and made companies say what their stock prices were and some of their profits and losses to help people avoid making bad investments to help that fail. After 1935, America was still in a depression, so Roosevelt ended up launching the second New Deal, which was the second phase of the New Deal, and it was more aggressive in its legislation. Social Security was one of the biggest things in this, which was a guaranteed pension for all Americans. Second biggest piece of legislation in the second New Deal would end up being the Wagner Act. This allowed workers to create unions and collectively bargain with their employers. Now that you know a little bit more about the New Deal, I'm going to go into Roosevelt's lasting impacts as a president on this country. During his presidency, Roosevelt made a massive impact on the country through first things such as public works, which helped make infrastructure, which were things such as airports, highways, and schools. Arguably the biggest impact of Roosevelt's presidency would be, although his biggest impact would be Social Security program. And this is the first time that America would be economically responsible for some of the people in it. Social Security made the framework of the welfare program, and today Social Security is still being used by millions of Americans, and it helps millions of Americans still today. As a result of the legislation that he did in office, Franklin Roosevelt will continue to have an impact on this country. And today I've described Franklin Roosevelt and some of the programs along with his lasting impacts on America. If you're ever on a highway or looking at Social Security, consider who helped make these things possible. And as I stated in the introduction, Franklin Roosevelt was a very influential president and his New Deal helped change America and still impacts people all over today. Thank you for coming.